The Education Minister calls for more support of male students. Brilla Bank donates 52 iPads to the Jones Bopier Primary School, and the government of Dominica continues to take steps towards the CCJ. Thank you for joining us for another edition of National Focus. I'm Jarna, Hector.
And I'm Mervin. Stay with us for details of the headline stories and others after this.
Did you know the Caribbean Court of Justice is two courts in one? The CCJ has two functions: an original jurisdiction, which deals with your right to move between CARICOM countries freely, and your right to move your money and your business. This is the basis of the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, and the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, and an appellate jurisdiction to hear appeals from courts of those countries which decide to use it as their final court of appeal and no longer go to the Privy Council. All CARICOM member states who have signed the agreement establishing the CCJ are members of the CCJ.
Thank you for staying with us. The $25.9 million Point Michelle Sea Defense Wall and Road Reinstatement Project was officially commissioned last Friday. The ceremony featured addresses from Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Minister for Public Works, Energy and Ports Honorable Rayburn Blackmore, and Parliamentary Representative for the Soufriere constituency Honorable Sam Martin. The Point Michelle Sea Defense and Road Reinstatement Project entailed the construction of a reinforced concrete seawall, the reinstatement of the roadway to facilitate free flow of traffic, the construction of surface drains and culverts, the construction of sidewalks and parking spaces.
Many of you will recall how narrow the previous road used to be. Not more than 3.5 meters or 11 feet. Tales have been recounted of many drivers, including visitors, who were scared of driving through Point Michelle for the fear of navigating over the narrow road, over the walls and into the sea. Also, many of you will recall the frequent breaches and damage to the old infrastructure, which resulted in road closures and the diversions in the past.
Construction work on the project commenced in April 2011 and was completed in August 2012. It was funded through a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank and is consistent with Dominica's development objectives and priorities.
Our motivation had to do in part with a desire to enhance the quality of life of residents of southwestern Dominica. It was also in direct response to a campaign promise we made to the people of Point Michelle and the Soufriere constituency. The makeshift conditions that existed following Hurricane Omar could have sufficed, and knowing the people of Point Michelle as I do, many would have improvised and made do with what obtained. But we toured this area as a cabinet of ministers, and we determined, one, that the makeshift arrangement was not satisfactory. Two, that residents needed to be protected from the elements. And three, that residents and visitors to these and adjoining communities deserved better.
Friday's official commissioning also included the handing over of vending stalls. GIS News will bring you a full report on Friday's commissioning in Tuesday's newscast.
In more news, the Minister for Education and Human Resource Development, Honorable Peter Seja, says the nation's male students need more support for improved scholastic performance. On Friday, when the results of the Grade 6 National Assessment were revealed, data indicated that generally female students performed better, with about 9% earning low grades. Specifically in mathematics, 13% of the 514 assessed boys earned less than 40%. The minister acknowledges that while only a small number of boys are having trouble, there remains a need for improvement in that regard.
Our biggest concern remains that of low performance of a small number of males. About 90 or 17% of our boys obtained low grades. The data shows that only about 9% of our girls fell in that category. This indicates clearly to us that our boys continue to be at risk, and as such, I wish to make a renewed call for parents and indeed the community at large to provide more support and encouragement to our boys.
Emotional support at home, among other things, is what the ministry recommends to boost male scholastic performance. The Education Minister went on to detail his ministry's efforts to reversing that trend.
I believe that within the homes, our boys need much more attention, more one-on-one assistance with their schoolwork, and more emotional support so that they can reach their full potential. For our part, the Ministry of Education will continue to train our teachers to respond to the challenges of fashioning instruction that can reach our boys and trigger their interest in learning. The key, I believe, is to harness boys' strength in order to obtain the best results.
Honorable Serja, a former teacher, believes that educators ought to engage boys for the topics of their interest.
Let me note here that if boys are constantly subjected to disapproval for their interests and enthusiasm, they are likely to become disengaged and lag behind in their work. Our schools, therefore, need to work with and not against the imaginations, creativity, and the interest of our boys to move them towards becoming educated young men who can take their rightful place in a competitive global environment.
In related news, the Ministry of Education says it is detecting a trend of scholars and bursars repeating first form in secondary school. Chief Education Officer Melina Fontaine told the press on Friday that this pattern needs to be halted immediately.
We have observed that a number of students who receive scholarships and bursaries are repeating Form 1, and we want this to stop. Why? Because if they can get a scholarship and bursary at grade 6 national assessment, it means that they have the cognitive capacity for them to do well in Form 1. And so we want to ensure that measures are put in place so that that practice can stop.
She said further that the Education Ministry is working closely with secondary schools in that regard.
At the Ministry of Education, we have already had a discussion with our secondary schools, and they're going to ensure that come September, they put transition programs in place to ensure that the students, when they come in, they can settle and they can adapt to secondary school life, meaning they have a schedule for studying, they have the required study skills, and all what is necessary to ensure that they do not repeat Form 1.
Fontaine spoke directly to parents, calling for more focused support of their students.
We want the parents to assist us as well and to ensure that their students have a schedule to work after school when school is finished. Your students at secondary level need to spend at least 2 hours on after school work when they enter secondary school. Very important. If you have problems, ask your school for help.
A newcomer to corporate citizenship in Dominica, Brilla Bank Corporation, announced its presence on the island by making a contribution to education. After 9 months of liaison with government on a way to have the strongest impact on the education landscape, the bank donated 52 new iPads to Jones Bopier Primary School in La Plaine.
You should have seen the enthusiasm with which the students received that news. Their faces glowed with delight. As principal, I will ensure that this useful and valuable resource will be preserved and used effectively to enhance education at Jones Bopier Primary School.
CEO of Brilla Bank, David Brelenburg, addressed the students.
Now you have the chance to see the world through technology. Technology is something that allows you to really explore and learn online and learn on live. I think it's something that you have to share with your fellow students, and it's something you have to really embrace. There are many tools in the internet which are free about dictionaries, about learning. There are many tools, and the reason why we chose Apple was because Apple has the biggest library of software, free software for schools in the world. They're by far the best, and we thought that that would be the best way to really bring you the world to you. So we wish you the best of luck.
The CEO stated further that his bank will not only make the donation, but will also provide support for the most effective use. Brelenburg specifically mentioned the Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, who he said made the investment process very simple. Honorable Dr. Kenneth Darrow represented Prime Minister Skerritt at last week's ceremony.
I would like to really thank the Brilla Bank Corporation for this gesture. And this private, public and partnership is something I think that should be emulated. Oftentimes we find corporate citizens we find them working countercurrent with government policies. Of course, for more than one reason, sometimes because of partisan associations rather, and they're not being associated with the government. But I would like to think that if other private companies like yourself would recognize the government policies that the world and the small island developing state like ours, where the fiscal resources and other resources are scarce, that we would be able to maximize the use. And I'm sure the Brilla Bank Corporation, having been a few years established in Dominica, would have recognized the policies of the government as to our very aggressive goal of having one university graduate per household, and also education to all. And I'm sure this gesture here today would go a long way into the formation of these students.
A parliamentary representative for the La Plaine constituency, Honorable Peter Seja, who is also Minister for Education and Human Resource Development, welcomed the gesture by Brilla Bank. He stated that government has long been working towards grooming global citizens through the education system.
The Ministry of Education recognizes that we must prepare our students to be global citizens. And so we have invested, first of all, in providing internet access to all our schools on island. We are also on a drive to equip all our schools with computers and computer labs. But of course, this is a challenge for a developing state like Dominica. To date, 50 of our schools have functioning computer labs, that including 32 of our primary schools. All primary schools have access to at least 3 computers or laptops, as the case may be.
Honorable Seja said further that although much has been achieved, still more work is left to be done, which is why government considers the gesture a brilliant one. Senator Tammy Jacques is manager of Brilla Bank in Dominica, which is 2 years old.
Brilla Bank is a financial institution chartered in the Commonwealth of Dominica, specialized in providing banking products and services to institutional investors, individuals, and family offices. We offer our clients the utmost service, security, and reliability, abiding to the strictest industry norms.
The government of Dominica continues to take actions to facilitate the establishment of the Caribbean Court of Justice as the final court of appeal in Dominica. On Tuesday, July 1st, an act to amend the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica to facilitate the establishment of the CCJ will be read for the second and third time in Parliament. The 6th meeting of the 4th session of the 8th Parliament will be held at the House of Assembly. Other matters on the order paper include the presentation of the DDA's audited financial statements for the year ending June 30th, 2013, as well as the financial statements for the Dominica Broadcasting Corporation for the year ended June 30th, 2014. Tuesday's sitting of Parliament begins at 10 a.m. and will be carried live on GIS Channel 7 on Mapping 2K4 and Channel 2 on SAT Telecommunications Limited.
31 young men graduated from the St. Mary's Academy on Friday, June 27 at the ceremony themed "The New Journey Begins with a Clear Vision for a Brighter Tomorrow." Cuthbert Elwin, principal of the St. Mary's Academy, in his address commended the graduates for their perseverance and commitment to their studies.
Over the past few years, you have persevered. You have somehow denied many of the temptations of technology in order to concentrate on your studies. Deep introspection liberated patience to cope and the fortitude of mind to understand and decide what your priorities were. So here we are today, successfully ending high school education. Hard work does pay.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Marcelo Powell, who spoke on behalf of the Education Minister, encouraged the graduates to use the knowledge gained for success in their future.
Graduates, you have chosen as your theme, "A journey begins with a clear vision for a brighter tomorrow." This is most appropriate as you embark upon this new journey as high school graduates, eager to expand your knowledge, advance your education, and build solid futures for yourselves and your families. Your theme is a statement of purpose, and it will require you to harness your values, skills, and creativity to achieve success in life. That vision you speak of requires you to have a drive to succeed, to achieve and to make the most of the opportunities you are presented with while you move through life.
Keynote speaker Francis Joseph noted that perseverance and self-expression are key for the next stage in their lives.
Everyone can rise above their circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do. You need to be prepared for this stage in your life, as I was many years ago, with lectures and encouragement from my professors, parents, family, mentors, work colleagues, and supervisors. Remember, in a practicing democracy, one must exhale and express themselves, as that leads to some level of maturity.
Al Parilla was announced 2014 valedictorian. He revealed in his speech that the motto "Men Under Construction" was the driving force behind their success.
The essence that kept us all going for these 5 years, believe it or not, is the first words which we received on the first day of our school at our very first assembly. Men under construction. And in its purest form, determination. We are all here tonight because of this powerful concept, and that's what will carry us through the rest of our lives as the alumni of St. Mary's Academy. We must then continue to build on the foundations that we built for ourselves, using the tools that have been provided by this glorious institution, and never let this fall by the wayside.
And that's it for the English segment of National Focus. McPherson St. Luce is next with the Creole highlights.
Allô tout le monde, bienvenue à cette nouvelle en créole. Non, moi, c'est McPherson St. Louis. Premièrement, une offshore bank en Dominique Brille Bank fait présentation ordinateur pour l'école Jones Beaupien en La Plaine. Présentation là prend place pendant une cérémonie en La Plaine semaine passée. Officier gouvernement en parmi representative Premier Minister, Honorable Dr. Kenneth Darrow, membre parlement Honorable Peter Saint-Jean, officier banque là, power et étudiant attendez cérémonie. Membre parlement Honorable Peter Saint-Jean, bien plaisir pour donation là, qu'on y aller en longue distance et d'éducation négion l'école là.
Brilla Bank Corporation, ça c'est une banque, une offshore bank qui fait une donation ordinateur, iPad, computers. Nous avons un programme là, nous travaillons et puis nous avons iPad pour toute maman l'école, second grade pour 5e grade. Et ça veut dire que nous avons 60 iPad qui ont donné et nous avons servi ça pour éduquer ces enfants-là et aussi pour ces teachers-là ont servi pour délivrer les leçons à l'école. Mon cas, ça c'est un gros investissement qui Brilla Bank a fait en éducation en Dominique et spécialement en La Plaine puisque aujourd'hui nous vivons dans un temps la technologie, c'est ça tout le monde qui a servi et ça qui aide nous en ministre éducation pour délivrer qualité éducation par peuple dominicain.
En la nouvelle, projet basketball had caught a Bafford en Wozo, Katapé attention. Representative Labour Party pour Wozo, Honorable Senator Alvin Bernard, visiter le projet là.
Nous avons joué au basketball court qui était là pour 7 ou 8 années sans opération, sans occupé. Avec ces négociations à place là, nous en longtemps pour aider eux. Mais il prend un titre pour nous faire puis si d'autres bagailles, nous tenons pour considérer.
Honorable Bernard aussi mentionné le programme sanitation.
Si nous avons watché toilette là, nous pouvons extend, nous pouvons mettre le programme Prime Minister là à place là. Pour les gens qui ont besoin de toilettes à Caillou. Mais même si nous avons des public convenience là, mais nous croyons pour les gens qui ont besoin de toilettes à Caillou pour plus santé avec ni public convenience là toujours. So, après nous finir le basketball court là, nous allons aller à ces toilettes à Caillou, ces gens là qui ont besoin avec public convenience là.
Dans la nouvelle, le gouvernement Dominica a continué pour action pour établir Caribbean Court of Justice, compris l'audience Kawaii pour la Dominique. Le Parlement Dominique ouvert mardi, ça c'est demain, le 1er juillet, pour courir deuxième et puis troisième reading pour un bill pour amender la constitution là pour faciliter Caribbean Court of Justice. Quand même, si l'Attorney General Honorable Levi Peter, bill là que présenté et puis il est déclaré pour membre du Betli. Après ça, il est allé devant le président pays là pour signer les majorités membres parlement d'accord à souhait. D'autres papiers motion qui est présenté c'est un statement Discover Dominic Authority, ça fait audit à yo pour l'année qui vient au bout le 30 juin l'année 2013. Ensemble et puis statement financier radio DBS pour l'année financière qui vient au bout le 30 juin l'année 2014. Parlement qui est ouvert à 10h le bon matin. Finalement, ça fait qu'à concerner backyard gardening tapé attention pendant 3 mois qui participant ISPEA tapé ça qui backyard gardening enhancement project. Organisation par où collaborer et puis ministre agriculture et santé pour programme salade. Membre parlement pour Gonfond, Honorable Ivor Stevenson, complimenter ces gens qui organisent pour engager jeunesse en backyard gardening. Quand même, M. Solomon Saint-Ville, Hot Boudica, participer en programme là.
Moi, participer dans le projet Organic Agriculture and Backyard. C'était un bon projet parce que nous apprenons pour manger au jardin pour casser nous. Avec le projet ça qui fait moi continuer à planter autant manger autant vegetables pour famille là et puis assister moi animique et puis neighbors moi aussi.
Messieurs mesdames, ça c'est tout pour nouvelle en créole pour à présent. Non moins, c'est McPherson St. Louis. Au revoir.
Coming up, find out how to boost your brain power. Coming up next.
In-studio discussions, insight, Creole News, Road to the Throne, Calypso, Creole Festival, Carnival, and lots more local programming. See it all on the Government Information Service, your first for local news.
Think positively. Stress and anxiety kill existing brain neurons and also stop new neurons from being created. Research has shown that positive thinking, especially in the future tense, speeds up the creation of cells and dramatically reduces stress and anxiety. Try and get a handle on negative thoughts and make an effort to replace them with positive ones.
Ban the calculator. Remember back at school when we were taught to use our brains to do simple sums? Resist the urge to work things out using an external device and use your brain, the device you were born with.
And that's all for this edition of National Focus. We always welcome your suggestions and your comments. Drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm or visit our website news.gov.dm.
Friend us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/GIS News Dominica. You can also catch up on past National Focus newscasts on our GIS Dominica YouTube channel. On behalf of the entire news production team, I'm Mervin Matthew.
And I'm Jarna Hector. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.